I'm Alex, and we are
Heart full, mind heavy,
North
and South.
Unfiltered.
Hi, we'd just like to issue a trigger warning for this episode. It does contain themes of alcohol abuse and addiction, so please do take care while listening.
So today's episode is taking it down a little bit.
We
are going in on a bit of a heavy topic, and we're going to talk about growing up with somebody in your life who is struggling with addiction, and really this is my case, alcohol addiction. So it's a tough one, but an important one to get out there.
And I think it's good that we're going to sort of change the roles up a little bit, that I'm going to be sort of asking you questions. Obviously you've got a lot of experience in this area, so it only seems right that you take the mic for this one, and I would love to know a little bit more. You've touched on your upbringing with me on several occasions, but I think it's a really important topic for us to cover on the platform, and I'd love to know more about it as well.
Yeah, cool. And I'm an open book. I've always been honest about these sort of things because I think it's important that we are honest. So there isn't really anything that is off limits. So yeah, shall we get started?
Yeah, we sure can. So when we were putting together ideas of content for the podcast, this one came up pretty quick. And as much as I can relate to an extent, I think this is something that you were actively living with. This is part of your upbringing. So only natural that you're going to have a lot more to say than me for once. So really, talk to me. How did alcohol abuse and addiction serve a huge role in your upbringing, Debs?
So it was massive. It's kind of part of who I am. It's part of what shaped me to be who I am today. I've had to deal with some things from an early age that I always say most adults probably would struggle to deal with. It's not a great story, but it's my story, it's who I am, and I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me in this because, you know, this is part of my journey, part of who I am, part of where I've come from, where I'm going, and it's made me the person that I am today. And whilst it's a tough one because it is to do with my mum, I do want to start out by saying that my mum did do her best, and you know, she was in a difficult circumstance, which we'll get into shortly, and you know, financially and everything like that, she absolutely did her best, but unfortunately there was just that flaw in her that made it impossible to deal with, and yeah, she did have trouble with alcohol.
Okay. When do you remember that starting?
So for me, really and truthfully, it was probably when I was about 12, which is when our life fell apart. So very briefly, my mum married my dad when she was probably about 20, 21. They had me, and then when I was about 2.5, 3, they had my sister. That relationship was abusive, so there was violence involved. I'm obviously making this very, you know...
Yeah, of course.
You know, this is a bit clinical, but, you know, that's the way it is. And my mum ended up splitting up with my dad, and she met another guy who... We're going to call him my stepdad for the purposes of this podcast because it makes it easier, but my God, he really is in no way, shape or form a father figure whatsoever.
Yeah.
On the outside, everybody would have said we had everything. Literally, this guy, you know when they say if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Yeah. This was that situation. So he literally was, you know, if you needed your house repainted, he was the person you'd ask. You needed your radiators replumbed, he was the person you asked. Your house needed to be rewired, he was the person you asked. You'd run out of toilet roll, call this person, you know. I won't even say his name, Alex, because I don't even really want to, you know, that's the way it is with this one.
He was the local hero, handyman.
Yeah.
He could do no wrong to the outside.
He had, as far as we were aware, we had our own business. We were doing really well. Money was sort of no object. We were having these amazing holidays, brand new cars. So that's kind of the setup. And then when I hit about 12, that kind of came crashing down around us spectacularly, and it turned out that our life had been one huge lie. We were up to debt in oh god, I think it was something like, at the time, you've got to remember we're going back like 35 years now. I think my mum was in debt to the tune of something like 150,000.
But that back then, that is a huge amount.
It's a huge amount.
It's a huge amount now.
Yeah, she discovered that the mortgage payments, we were a year behind. The business that we thought was running was a complete sham. It didn't exist. The car that she thought was brand new and hers wasn't, it was rented. So there was a lot of stuff that leads up to what is about to happen. And then this all came about probably when I was probably about 12. The whole thing started catching up with him. So the lies were starting to catch up with him. He couldn't hide it anymore. Mum was starting to suddenly realise that life wasn't quite as rosy as what she thought it was. They did their best initially to kind of keep my sister and I out of it all. I remember going to Spain with my nan and granddad, which at the time I thought was just some lovely holiday that your nan and granddad wants to take you on, but it transpired actually that was really time to get us out of the way for them to try and salvage whatever was going on. It was never going to be salvageable, but obviously hindsight's a lovely thing. And then there just followed a whole loads of events which resulted, there's a story of him which I think needs to be saved probably for our Father's Day episode, the full true story, but there's stories of him like nailing himself in the loft and telling my mum he'd wired himself up to the electrics, and if she touched anything he'd go up with it.
Wow.
Obviously now I'm like, why didn't you hit the button, mother? But
and is this stuff that your mum told you after? This is not, you don't remember living that at the time?
Do you know what? I do remember that time because I didn't really know the true story. So some of this has obviously been filled in since, but I can remember that day when he nailed himself in the loft because I got picked up from school. So I would have been at secondary school at the time. My sister would have been at primary school. And I remember coming home and being told we had to go to a neighbour's house, which was really unusual. That just wasn't normal. And stuff was going on. And you just know as a kid that something's not right.
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't know the extent then, but that's something that's came out after time.
You've put the pieces together and you could,
Yeah. He disappeared for about 4 days.
Okay.
And then he randomly turned up sort of like midnight acting really weird, and I had to, along with my sister, we got woken up in the early hours of the morning and we had to escape our house.
Oh my goodness.
Running down the road, him sort of chasing us, banging on a neighbour's door, and that's really when our lives truly,
you remember that?
Yeah, 100%, like I can vividly see that whole thing. And I think then was when it all unfolded that my mum had an issue with alcohol.
Well, I guess she was self-medicating through a very difficult time.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean,
2 daughters to raise, a life that was seemingly a bit of a lie.
Yeah.
A partner that's gone AWOL.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously she went into fight mode. I think we stayed with my nan and granddad for a period of time. And then we went through a series of, we were temporary housed, which was awful because the place we were staying in, I think, was infested with cockroaches. There were people doing drugs.
So was it, sorry Debs, was this in South London?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the time we'd lived in Crayford. We lived there for about 7-8 years. And you know, I don't know if this was something that happened to you guys up in Liverpool, but back down here, this was the time when council houses, the council were trying to encourage you to buy your house. Of course, we'd moved into the house as a council house because my mum had split up with my dad, and that was a bit of a torrid time. And so they then bought the house, which then eventually led us to being evicted. So,
if I remember rightly, wasn't that a Labour incentive? Was that, or was it Maggie Thatcher? Would that have been Conservative?
No, I think that would have been Conservative.
Because yes, it happened a lot in Liverpool. I remember. I mean, a lot of my friends growing up lived in council houses, but they own them.
Yeah. So So yeah, it was a torrid time. It was a torrid time, and I think it was then around when suddenly I had to grow up very fast. And you're on your own, and I could see that my mum was behaving in a way that perhaps other mums weren't. And interestingly enough, we mentioned it on the podcast with Friendship. There's a lady, Shirley, who my mum met when probably I was about 2, I think I was 3. We'd moved into the flats, and she was a neighbour, and her son was a similar age to me, so they became friends, and literally up to the point, very sadly, I lost my mum in 2017. They were the best of friends, and yeah, Shirley was really a true friend. I mean, some of the stuff she's had to deal with.
Sounded like your mum when you needed her.
Yeah, definitely. And it's quite interesting because probably when I got to about the age of 13, 14, Shirley opened up to me and said that, you know, the alcohol issue has probably been going on since you were about 5 years old.
Wow.
But I only really knew about it from when I was about 12.
Is that because you wouldn't remember before that, do you think? Or did your mum hide it really well and it took a bit of crisis?
Do you know what? I think at the time, look, you've got to go back to the 80s for a start. So life was very different today. But perhaps there wasn't, like, teenagers today don't really drink. It's not really seen as a cultural thing.
They're all teetotal.
Yeah. Which, bizarrely, throughout all of this, I'm not. And I'm quite happy and confident to tell you all that. I do like a glass of Prosecco. I do like a glass of wine. But it's the reasons why, which is what we're going to come on to.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't think it was that she hid it. I think that because life was happy, it was just part of that abundance.
It was a social drinking.
It was social. It was... That was who my mum was, you know, she was bubbly, she was vivacious, and the glass of wine at the time didn't seem to be the issue. Obviously, when life fell apart, then that changed dramatically.
And that's when it becomes the self-medicating.
Very much so. And it was, there's no two ways about it, it was really, really hard.
So, did you... Tell me what memories, have you got any specific memories of that hardship, of being, an early teen with a younger sister?
Yeah, goodness me. So I've got memories, I must have been at secondary school. We were still in the house in Crayford, so we hadn't actually lost it at this point. And I can actually remember, in fact, talking about it now, I can vividly see my mum at the bottom of the stairs, just literally comatose, I suppose, with alcohol, and having to kind of step over her to go up the stairs.
But I guess it was just that was it. That was normal, and mum's on the floor. But
it was normal. But do you know what the interesting thing is? I obviously knew from an early age that this wasn't right, and I tried to keep it a secret. Yeah, I tried to, which is now really bonkers. But yeah, I tried to keep it from the family. I tried to keep it all contained, and like, I didn't want anyone knowing.
You were trying to protect that functional family setup, I guess. Like, protect them for yourself, but also you loved your mum at the end of the day, regardless of what was going on. You were trying to protect that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing because I didn't like my mum very much, but she's my mum at the end of the day. So
love her in your own way.
Absolutely. So, another vivid memory I've got. This is a lot later on. I would have been. Oh God, this was probably when I was about 21, 22, something like that, and I was working. And this was probably mum at her worst. She went on what I kind of described to you as a 3-day a 3-day drinking binge.
Wow.
And this was the only time I ever saw it like this. Literally, we went on this cycle of she drank like 7 o'clock in the morning. It just was continual. And there was a time when she was trying to get up the stairs and she actually physically couldn't put her foot on the bottom stairs. And I had to carry my mum up to her room and put her into bed, and that's not great.
No, it's not. Now tell me, because we've discussed this off the pod about how we know that alcohol abuse is an illness.
Yeah.
Tell me, was your mum in full acknowledgement that she had a problem? Was it discussed? Did she admit she had a problem that she couldn't?
So there was a point when, again, this is probably going to, how old would I have been? Probably about 27, 28. And she did go and get help. she went to Alcohol Anonymous, and I think at that point we just thought, great, this is it, this is the start, we're going to get somewhere. But my mum liked to take those less fortunate than her under her wing, and I think she went to Alcohol Anonymous, and because she wasn't, look, when you say the word alcoholic, what goes through your head?
Probably, after the week I've had, probably, and that's not suggesting that I'm an alcoholic, by the way, guys, just to say, I will come on to it shortly, it's someone very close to me, but until recently, probably you're waking up in the morning, you're having a drink, and you're getting drunk, and you're drinking all day, you're going to bed, you're passing out, you're waking up, you're starting it again. But we've discussed this before. I don't even think there's the highs and the lows, and there's the drunk and the sober. It's a continuous cycle of this poor health and state of mind that they become.
So my mum's alcoholism, and I will say this right here and now, because those listening and people that are in this industry and, you know, professionals out there, Mum was never medically diagnosed as an alcoholic, but I say she was. You know, she needed alcohol to get through life. But she stuck to wine. She never went on, you know, she was never a whiskey drinker or a vodka drinker. Other than that bizarre 3-day binge she had, there was never any sort of early morning drinking all the way through. The worst day ever was a Sunday, but she had to have drink every day of her life. So she would come
she couldn't function without it,
she
I
couldn't
guess,
function
because they
without
get
it.
so dependent.
Yeah. So because she went to Alcohol Anonymous and saw these people that were drinking from 6-7 in the morning, 24/7, addicted to your stronger spirits and things like that, she deemed that she didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
So there lies the problem.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. So tell me, obviously you've told me the awful scenario of when you had to step over it, and so what other situations did you find yourself in, and when did it start becoming, was there a moment, when it was like, well, this is mum, or at what point was there a time when you thought this has got to change? Like, was there a family intervention to get her help? Or was this
that's
just
an interesting one, isn't
was it a continuous routine and lifestyle that everyone just
I think
put up with?
I think it was, and I think you look back over my life. So I left home when I was 21, and I left home under a cloud. I've been chucked out more times than you've had hot dinners. But you know, the craziness of it is
By your mum?
Yeah, by my mum. And the bonkers thing about it is that she used to pack like all my cuddly toys for me and chuck a bag down the stairs, and you know what I mean, like, you're gonna get far with a bag of cuddly toys.
That's
aren't you?
heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but that's how it was. I've been called all sorts of hideous names. She's actually called me a prostitute.
Wow.
That's literally the honesty of it all. And I think in the end you get to a point, like, the family
It's
kind
not
of
them, it's when the
No.
alcohol takes over.
and you then have to protect yourself. So
Yeah.
when I was probably 21, I suppose I ran away, for want of a better word. I basically decided that I had to get out, so I went and moved into this house where I literally had a room that was shared in this house. It wasn't particularly great, it wasn't what I wanted, but I had to get out for my own sanity. And I then started getting counselling for myself.
Sorry, can I just say, like, it took me to the age of 37 to even think about doing any sort of counselling.
Really?
You done that in your early 20s?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was huge. And the biggest thing I took from it was so lovely to sit in front of somebody and tell your story and it not to be a shock.
And feel listened to.
Yeah, because so many people, and don't get me wrong, the story's hideous, you know, I joke, you know, I could probably go and keep EastEnders fully, you know, in its storylines for the next 10 years, really. In fact, some of the storylines you've seen on EastEnders, I've lived, which is a bit sad, really, but, you know, you've got to laugh about this, otherwise you go insane. But, it's difficult, so yeah, but...
Amazing. So how was your relationship with your mum? So after you moved out at that age, how did your relationship with your mum change for the better, for the worse? How were things after that?
So I took control. So I remember one of the things that the counsellor said to me, which, and this is going to sound like, when you say it out loud, you think, why did I not think of that? So one of the things...
Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
I know it is, isn't it? But one of the things that the counsellor said to me, because one of the big things with Mum was ringing, and she'd constantly, like, she was literally like a lion attacking you. She was just in at you all the time.
Yeah.
She never let you go. You couldn't. So that's why then the volatile stuff happened, and our relationship was violent. You know, there was violence involved. There's no two ways about it.
Well, I think it's that loss of self-control, isn't it? I think the reason that they drink is because they need control of an area of their life.
Yeah.
And I guess it, you know, I can, you know, relate to this. I'll talk about it more shortly, but that persistent contact and that on you,
I mean,
the same conversations on loop.
Yeah, and I'm not even lying when I tell you this, that they were always arguments that happened at like 2, 3 in the morning. Why do they never happen at 10 o'clock in the morning? They don't, do they?
Yeah.
And I can vividly remember sitting with my full weight against my bedroom door with my mum pounding to get into me because she wanted to continue this argument. And I can just remember just literally like my full weight against this door, stopping her and just having to sit there until ultimately she passed out.
That's heartbreaking. That's your mum.
Yeah.
Would she ever remember this afterwards?
No, and I think that's what's even more harder. I think one of the saddest things, so I've been married twice. So my first wedding, they, her and her husband paid for my wedding dress, which was really lovely. We had the wedding. It was quite an extravagant affair. And I got an email from my mum after the wedding, which was just awful, really, telling me how I'd been this terrible daughter, that her husband had paid for my wedding dress and I'd not even bothered to say thank you, that I'd treated them as if they were only guests at the wedding. And yeah, it was horrendous, but that was the sort of thing you got because she was drunk. And then I remember
and trying to take control.
Yeah, and I remember her ringing me, like, I think it was even like the day after that. She genuinely had no clue what she'd done. She genuinely didn't remember it, but of course I did. And I think at that point I saw red. And you've got to remember, like, it's really hard to get the whole story out in the short time we've got. But this is going over, you know, like I'm talking from the age of 11, 12, and I'm now nearly 30. I think I just saw red and I was like, not doing this anymore.
Something had to give.
And I basically turned around to her and said, I can't believe you. You know, this is ridiculous. How dare you send me that email? How dare you accuse me of never saying thank you? Of course I said thank you. I mean, who doesn't say thank you for somebody buying their wedding dress? You know, we're not talking like £5, are we? You know,
it's delusional, isn't it? It's
completely.
When I'm afraid when that alcohol takes over, like that big monster.
Yeah, it's horrendous. And you know, I feel sorry for her because it took over so much of her life. And my mum was actually a really decent mum. She was what I would say is a proper mum. You know, she was the one that made the meals from scratch. She was amazing at creating birthday cakes, some of the things. And in fact, that's one of the positives I take from it. My sister's got that talent from her and she makes some amazing birthday cakes now. So there was some amazing things about my mum. But unfortunately, that alcohol addiction just took over and just clouded the whole lot, really.
And it is an illness, and this is something you've got to remind yourself. And I do want to talk about this a little bit shortly, but obviously you've talked to me about when your mum got poorly and when you lost your mum. That didn't have anything to do with the alcohol, did it?
Do you know what? It's difficult to say because I think nobody has turned around to us and said that is what's caused it. Now, Mum died of a really rare form of cancer, so it's called signet ring cell cancer. Which is just incredibly rare, and it's one of those unfortunate things that, you know, chemotherapy wasn't going to work. In fact, chemo makes it worse because it mutates it. The Macmillan nurses that were looking after her, they didn't really know what was going on. When you go into cancer research, there's like literally a page on it. You know, it's really that rare. But prior to that, she had breast cancer. And when she got diagnosed with the breast cancer, she did suddenly give up smoking and drinking. And I do wonder if after all those years of pumping that stuff into you, to suddenly just stop it, is that going to have an effect on you? Because the deterioration when she got that cancer the second time round was literally 12 weeks.
Well, as you know, I can talk about this too.
You can, yes.
So, and when I told my mum that we were going to cover alcohol addiction in the podcast, my mum laughed and said, well, you've got experience of that with your father.
Yeah.
And my dad is not, and we're not going to talk too much about my dad because he is going to be covered in a future pod because there's a lot to talk about with dads.
Yeah.
But he wasn't my first thought. My first thought was my brother. So basically, my dad has 4 older children, older than me. I'm the youngest, and they range from 63 down to me at 39. My brother, who's the youngest, so closest to me, he's in his early 50s. He does suffer from alcohol addiction. And it is very relevant this week, as we would have covered in last week's pod. My brother, my oldest brother, suddenly passed away a couple of weeks ago, sadly, and it has brought all this to the helm again. So I've been having just everything you were saying before, the late night phone calls, the constant need to speak, the loop conversation, going over the same things again and again and again, not making any sense. And I'm a little bit on the fence with it because he's my brother, I love him. I grew up, he was only half brother, but I did grow up with a good relationship with him. I've seen him deteriorate over the years, and I haven't seen him since Dad's funeral in person, and I know that he's got a hell of a lot worse. When I got that call about my other brother passing away 2 weeks ago, I assumed it would be this said brother because of the addiction, because of the pure abuse he's given himself. And it was funny when my mum said, oh, you could talk a lot about that with your dad. I thought, no, but then when I think about it, it does start at home, and I do believe that my dad did enjoy a drink more than the next man, and he eventually took to his bed with cancer, which we will cover in a different episode, but he continued drinking. So he wasn't eating, he wasn't having a normal, life, but he was still drinking. And my other siblings will vouch for that. We've all had our demons with drink, okay? So I used to self-medicate probably in my early 20s, but at the time I was thinking, is this just me being a student, being a young girl, getting drunk, doing shots, passing out? The more I think about it, I would drink to the point where I hate saying it, I would be sick while I was out. So I would go to the toilet, I would be really, really sick. I would come out and I would carry on drinking.
Really?
And I would drink to the point where I would pass out. And I remember the time that some of the girls carried me home, left me on the doorstep, rung the bell and left. And my mum found me in a heap. There's early drinking in your teens and your 20s, and then there's drinking to that.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, it wasn't right. And I think self-medication drinking is a big, big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a slippery slope because I could have carried on. I could have carried on having that lifestyle and drinking. My brother unfortunately has, and he's not in a good way at the moment. And I've spoken to him quite a lot this week, and it's that same conversation like, have you had something to eat? Can you go to bed? Go and have some sleep now. Don't have a drink. No, I'm not going to have a drink. I promise. I said, promise me you're not going to have a drink. I know it's fallen on dead ears. He's going to go and have a drink. Does it make me feel better telling him don't have a drink? Do I put the phone down thinking he's going to have a little meal and go and have a sleep and he's not going to have a drink? I know full well he's going to have a drink because he's dependent on the drink.
Yeah, I think as humans we just want to say the right things, don't we? So we just come out of that. I think for me, one of the heartbreaking things, and it kind of, I can feel it choking me up now just talking about it. I think one of the heartbreaking things for me was, excuse me, Mum couldn't put me and my sister above drink. And I think that's one of the things that, really hurts, that we were there saying, there were plenty of times when we were saying, please, don't do this, please don't treat us like this, please don't speak to us like this, or, just stop, Mum, you need some help. And she just could not do it for us.
But what you need to remember now, looking back, it's not about the love she had for you.
No.
The illness takes over, nothing else matters.
Yeah, and it was completely that. There's lots of stories. I mean, my mum, she did the drink drive thing, and that's awful. You know?
Did she drink, just out as curiosity, did she drink openly in front of you both? Or did she wait until was she a secret?
No, not at all.
Alcoholic,
Not
or
at
was
all.
she-
Not at all. So, my God, you know, she used to drink the most vile wine. It was like Leaframelch, you know.
Oh no.
She'd buy like, you know, the great big, I suppose you'd call them
A Magnum
magnums.
now,
Oh my
yeah.
God, they were vile. And I mean, if that's going to put you off drinking wine, it's certainly, you know, my God, thank God I've learnt that wine is actually a lot nicer than that, you know.
Yeah.
But I won't touch it. It's like vinegar.
Yeah.
And you sort of, even that, you think, how can you do that to yourself?
Mhm.
But yes, that's what she used to do. No, not at all. It wasn't hidden at all. And Sundays were the worst day ever. Absolutely worst day. We used to hate Sundays.
The fact you've got that memory is really sad. That Sunday,
yeah.
Sunday's meant to be a day of rest. It's meant to be a day
No.
when you spend with your family, maybe have a roast dinner, go to the park. That's really sad.
Yeah, and you know, like my sister was. If my sister was here, I know she'd say it. And you know, we used to do things to get ourselves out. So my sister, quite at an early age, would go out a lot with her friends, and she kind of got with groups of people, and just because she wanted to be out of the house, because she didn't want to do it because it was so volatile, and the arguments, and it's hard, isn't it? Because you know, people mean well, and obviously family members and friends, they knew kind of bits and pieces that were going on, and of course as the time goes on and it comes out more, they're there doing it, but they get to put the phone down, they get to walk away, they get to go home. I had to live it 24/7.
Do you know, I went to uni with a girl, and you know, if she's listening, she'll know I'm talking about her. But we used to go out, you know, Wednesday, student night. We'd be getting ready in our various fancy dress costumes and, you know, skimpy outfits, and her phone would go, and she'd leave the room, and I'd be like, "Who's she on the phone to?" And I'd go, "Oh, it's her mum." And then she'd come back, and I said, "Who's that, mum? Is she okay?" And she said, "No, my mum's an alcoholic." And she was very frank about it. She'd say, "My mum's an alcoholic," and I used to think, okay, oh wow, like I didn't want to ask too many questions, but you could hear her. She'd be slurring, she'd be shouting, she'd be aggressive on the phone, and I'd be like, "You okay?" And then she'd, yeah, and then obviously I felt guilty because we're all having a drink, we're getting ready to go out, and she would just snap out of it, and she'd go, "Don't worry, she does it all the time. She'll call me sister next."
Yeah.
And I used to say, how is this normal for you? But you know, when I think about my dad and various things from my upbringing, people go to me, "That's mad." But for me, it was my normal. That was her normal.
Yeah.
Her mum would ring her, give her abuse. Shouldn't remember the next day.
Yeah.
And I often wonder about her, like, you know, I don't know if she still has a mum, but it's really sad. And this was going on 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you become the adult. So
Yeah.
from a young age, I
Yeah.
was the adult, I was the mum, I was the one that, you know, was trying to keep it all under control. And that's something that you shouldn't be doing at 14, 15 years old. Yeah, it is a sad story. And it does make it hard. You know, I don't have that mother-daughter relationship that I see others having. I never told my mum anything about me really, because it would be used against me. So if I turned around and said to my mum, "Oh, this is like when I had my eldest," so God, I was 33 when I had my eldest, and I did suffer with a bit of postnatal depression, very mild. I never told mum, and the reason I didn't tell mum was because she would make it about her. It would
Really?
yeah. It would be that, you know, it was like, you know, she'd use it against me, or in an argument something would get I mean, I had things that when I was in my 20s that I did when I was probably about 6 years old that she'd chuck at me, and I was like, for God's sake, Mum, I was 6, you know. But yeah, it was constantly like...
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I really don't know. It was just...
Very hard to
anger.
work out.
I mean, when you know the story, when you know what Mum went through, my stepdad... I mean, my dad wasn't great at all. But my stepdad was literally probably the one that absolutely destroyed her. And anyone that goes through that, I mean, he basically gaslighted her, and, you know, I mean, I can remember my mum having a mental breakdown and coming down the stairs and her literally sitting in the chair rocking backwards and forwards, because now I know it's because of all the things that had gone on with him, and he was just leading her down this path.
How confusing for you at the time.
But at the time I didn't realise that. So, you know, you sort of get it. Like, I understand why these situations came up, and I understand where Mum came from, but now, as a mum myself, and one of the things I vowed absolutely was that my children would never, ever, ever see anything I've been through.
Yeah.
Now they've seen me drunk, you know.
Oh yeah.
There's the story of me being sick in a local curry house, which we don't talk too much about,
I
but
love that story.
that just keeps getting rolled out. But you know, those are the ones they're the normal ones.
That's your social drinking.
Yeah.
You're having a good time. You're not drinking behind closed doors with no one around and getting aggressive. It's completely different.
And you're not drinking to blot your life out.
Exactly.
Which is exactly the difference. You know.
Exactly.
I like a glass of wine. I like a prosecco. There's no two ways about it. But I don't do it when my life's falling apart. And in fact, I am so hot on that. If life is hard, if I'm really struggling with something,
do something else.
Purposely won't. I do dry January. The reason I do dry January, and there's a reason for it, is because I need to prove to myself I'm not like my mum.
Really?
Yeah. So therefore I do it knowing that
I don't need drink.
I don't need it, and I don't. You know, I don't even miss it when I do it.
No one needs it. We just like it.
But yeah, I do it because I need to prove to myself. Because I actually think these things are a little bit genetics and hereditary.
You're worried that you took a bit of your mum.
So although my mum had the issue, I do know that my granddad's sister was also an alcoholic. So that's in the family. So you do sort of sit there and think, God, I don't want this to be me.
No, I agree. It happens. So, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it because I've not actually got my husband's consent, so I won't. But my husband did grow up with alcohol addiction in his family, and he purposely doesn't drink a lot. Like he's not the kind of husband that will open a bottle of beer after work.
Yeah.
He won't have a bottle of wine with dinner. He likes to drink, don't get me wrong. When we go out, he's a typical binge drinker. So he'll go out with the boys, he'll have a few beers, he'll probably get really, really drunk and need to go to bed, bless him. But he's not a heavy drinker. He won't touch shots. He won't really touch spirits, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I know, in the back of his mind, he's thinking, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that.
Constantly.
And he makes a conscious effort to not drink at home.
If ever I get drunk, I beat myself up big time. Because,
really?
Because I don't look at it probably like others would look at it and just go, ha ha ha, I got drunk and oh, wasn't that funny and oh my God, that was a bit embarrassing. I will beat myself up because I see it as more, and my God is at the start of the slippery slope. So I really do beat myself up, which is probably why it doesn't happen that often. Because like I'll go for a good 6 to 10 years before I have a major one. Yeah. But then I probably then do a major one because it's been 6 to 10 years. So
look, it as we've just discussed, it is an illness. It's an addiction. Getting drunk a few times does not make you addicted to something. And you know what was interesting when you were talking about your wedding earlier, and it literally triggered something in me. My dad and my said brother that I discussed, who's got the addiction, were at my wedding, and it must have been after dinner, before the first dance and the cutting of the cake. So what's that? Maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that bit when you finish dinner, then they're changing the room around, and then your evening guests arrive. You have your first dance. It's probably 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm going to say 2 hours. My dad and my brother were gone. They were nowhere to be seen, to the point where we had a father-daughter dance planned, and I was on the dance floor. After my first dance with Ryan, I was on the dance floor. The DJ started playing the song. It was My Girl by The Temptations. I still struggle to listen to it. We'd already cut the cake and he was nowhere to be seen. So I'd had my first dance. He'd missed that as well. And then My Girl by The Temptations started playing, and I'm on the dance floor on my own.
No.
And he didn't come. So I looked up at the DJ, cutthroat signal, stop the music, and then everyone just kind of came on and started dancing. Apparently my brother had got so drunk, he needed to go for a lay down. So my dad and my brother missed about 2 hours of my wedding, like key parts of the wedding as well. I've since thought, I think they both had a bit too much to drink maybe.
Yeah.
But the fact that it was okay to miss so much of my wedding. So I did have a huge fallout with my dad after that, and got the whole excuse of, your brother had to have a lie down, his medication and all this, which I know is complete rubbish. He'd had too much to drink, and he was my dad's priority, not my wedding day, and I never forgave him for that.
No, and I've probably got loads of stories like that where, I
But you tell people and they go, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I
And
just tell
that's
it. I just
hard.
go, yeah, and you know, and this happened and that, and we went. And they're like, are you joking? I go, no, I'm not. And it's like you telling your story about your
Yeah.
mum, you must get met with faces of absolute disbelief
Yeah,
and
and I
shock,
think
but I get it.
That's what makes it hard as well, because because it's you and it's your life. You don't want it to be sensationalized.
No.
You don't want it to be like this movie or this book.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But yeah, people do, which is where I think when you go back to where I went to the counsellor and him listening to my story and literally me sort of saying blah 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 blah, and then him just going, okay, like sorry, what? Like you've not remotely reacted to what I've just told you.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one that said to me, because by this point I'd moved out of home and stuff, and I was getting a lot of phone calls, and that was what was going on. He was the one that said to me, and have you ever just put the phone down on your mum?
Wow.
How simple does that sound?
But I understand why you couldn't.
And
But yes, it does
literally,
sound simple.
really simple. And taking back the control. And when he said that to me, I just sort of went, why have I never thought about that before? So
Or just not answer it, even worse.
not even answering. But so then what I started to do, when she would ring me and we'd get into those conversations, and you know those conversations where you know they're heading into, I literally just went, do you know what, Mum? I am not going to talk to you while you are in this state. And I used to say, I'm going to put the phone down now and I will talk to you when you are better. And I put the phone down.
But she won't want to talk then.
And literally, I can't tell you the power, taking that back,
Yeah.
just made you feel, because...
And how often would that conversation happen the next day?
Yeah.
Like, would she want
No.
to talk? No.
No, she wouldn't remember it.
No.
She'd probably keep ringing and ringing and ringing. I didn't answer the phone.
I had to do this. So just after I lost my dad, which was coming up 4 years ago, my brother went through a phase of calling me day and night, and I'm talking 2 a.m, 4 a.m, 6 a.m. I knew he was on a bender. He was up. He was still drinking. There's no way, even if he called at 8, there's no way he was just getting up.
No.
He was still up. For my own mental health reasons and for my own, you know, support my own grief, I actually stopped taking his calls because it was really damaging for me to talk to, because he would go over and over the day that Dad died, and he would go over it again and again and again in the same detail. And you get to the point where you're both in grief, so you don't want to go, I already know this, you've already told me this. But it got to the point where it's like, I know, we've had this conversation. And you start talking to them like a child.
Yeah.
It's like, we've had this conversation before, let's not upset ourselves. And it went on and on and on. My husband heard the way he spoke to me once, and he said, block him. He said, block him, or I'm going to have to speak to him on the phone. And I was like, right, well, I don't want that, so I'm going to block him. And it stopped, for obviously, because he blocked. And then I unblocked him, and then it obviously died down. But we go through these periods of time where I know he's drinking heavily, because he will continuously call me at really unsociable hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got you're trying to, and you get into this this stupid cycle. You know that they're not themselves. You know they're drunk, but yet you try and have that conversation with them. And it's only then when you sort of really think about it, and I took on board what the counsellor said and was like, what am I doing having this conversation? Because there is just no point.
No benefit for you.
And just literally cut it dead. That then started to improve my mental health. And I also realised I could say no to my mum.
Yeah.
Which, you know, let's be fair, that's tough to do.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone else did that to me, it wouldn't happen. There's no one else that could do that to me. But for some reason, because she was my mum, it was like, oh, I have to take this. You know, I'm the daughter, she's the mum, I have to take this. And suddenly hearing somebody say, no, you can actually turn around and go, I'm not taking this anymore.
You could call the shots.
I could call the
You're
shots.
an adult.
Yeah, I'm an adult, and I could just go. And it goes back to probably what we were talking about last week with the whole friendships, and you can't choose your family. You know, there is nowhere written down in law that says you actually have to like your family. I will add that I do like my family. That's not to say. But you know what? There's not that whole, because she's your mum, you have to like her. Because he's your dad, you have to like him. You don't.
And like a lot of stuff that we cover in this podcast, and will continue to do so, doesn't the knowledge and experience of this come with age.
Totally.
It's just
Totally.
something we're constantly evolving.
Yeah,
And learning.
absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? It's not all doom and gloom, because going through what I went through has made me who I am today. I'm determined that my girls will never see the things that I saw. And I've only literally skimmed the surface in this, because goodness me, we'd be talking about 10 years if we really wanted to go really in depth into it all. But my girls will never ever see that.
Breaking the cycle, because how many families don't break the cycle?
Yeah, and that's so key for everything. You know, there's so many people that it's just easy to say, well, because mum and dad were like this, that's why I'm like this. No, I ended it and I stopped it, and that's why I'm determined to have my business, make that grow, make it successful, show my girls that working hard is the way forward. Yes, you can enjoy yourself. You don't have to give up alcohol. If that's what you want to do, absolutely brilliant, and that's absolutely down to you. Those people that are doing sobriety, I take my hat off to you. But I do like a glass of wine. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because the reason I'm doing it, there is no reason. You know, I'm not doing it to hide anything. I'm not doing it to medicate, to dull down anything. So it really has made me who I am today. Would I rather have not gone through that? Of course, because it was hell. But
at the time, of course, it was.
Yes, but then I wouldn't be the person I am today. So that's where we are.
Likewise. And this is going to be a constant topic as we go forwards. Like, how has that shaped us to where we are now?
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to get out really, is the positivity side of it, because like you said, you've got these hideous stories that people just go, oh my God, and it's like, but
we can
you know
take
what?
this from it, and we can take that from it.
Absolutely, and I've moved forward, and that is my past, and it is massively important. It is what has shaped me, but it doesn't define me. And just because I've got this thing in my background doesn't mean that that's going to happen to me, and I am going to strive to be the best person that I possibly can be.
Nice. Thank you so much for telling your story. I know it was very challenging at times, and it broke my heart listening to some of it, but
You're welcome.
thank you so much.
And thank you. And I just hope that people out there listening can kind of take some solace and know that, you know, you're not alone, and that there's plenty of us out there that are struggling with all of this, and that, you know, I hear you.
Absolutely. Right then, see you again next time
See you next time.
on
Heartful
Mind Heavy, North
and South
Unfiltered.